Marianne Williamson, joining us on this Sunday morning. Welcome back to the show, Marianne.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We're thrilled to have you. So you put out a statement. You asked voters to cast a ballot for you instead of Biden. You are in the Democratic Party. Can you expand on this? Some might be calling you a spoiler. Would you agree?
Well, you can't be a spoiler in a primary, first of all. Secondly, the president has won the nomination. That's not the question here. The issue is that in the states where I am still on the ballot, people still have the opportunity to weigh in with their views on how America should operate. You know, everything that you've shown in your program so far speaks to the economic despair of so many Americans. We need universal health care. We need tuition-free college and tech school. We need a guaranteed living wage. Whether you're talking about Black voters or young voters, so many people are the system, it's not just the Democratic Party. The system is bleeding voters because people are disgusted. People recognize that both major political parties don't, in the final analysis, seem so much to be serving the people or serving democracy so much as serving their own donor base. So we can still weigh in on this, even though the system has, decided it's two candidates, even though 70% of the American people said that they wanted to see other people.
We are going to talk about expanding a two-party system in just a moment. We were talking to Jackie just a little while ago. This weekend, as you know, President Biden is in Georgia. He's targeting the Black vote. Why do you think Biden is struggling with this demographic?
Well, I think that no matter who people are, we've gotten so into identity politics, we've gotten so into this group versus that group, but there's a common despair underneath all of these groups in terms of the experience of the average American. And that is true of Black voters more than any others in terms of economic hardship. We have 39% of Americans who now report that they regularly skip meals in order to pay their rent. We have millions of Americans who are selling their blood plasma. We have a majority of Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck and cannot absorb a $1,000 unexpected expenditure. For Black voters, in addition to that, there has not been one fundamental police reform piece of legislation. So I think so many Americans, every group of Americans in a way, it's just except the very, very richest among us, are throwing up their hands and have a deep sense that the government is not working for them.
Let's go back to expanding the two-party system in our country. RFK Jr. fighting to get on the debate stage. What are your thoughts on that?
I think we should have more democracy. I think that anybody who is I felt this during my own campaign. There are people in this country who think the way to save our democracy is to suppress our democracy. We need to open this thing up, not close it down. And so if someone is on the ballots, if someone is an FEC registered qualified candidate, the American people are what matter here. And the American people have the right to hear from all the candidates. What are their ideas? What is their agenda? And so I don't like the idea that the Democratic and Republican parties have kind of locked this thing up for themselves, or at least try to, and keep out other independent voices. It's not okay. And I think that a lot of people, whether you agree with Bobby Kennedy or not, really is not the issue. The issue is whether or not you believe in democracy. And I experienced a lot of that going on during my own primary. And the American people don't like it. The American people want to hear, what are our options? Don't just throw it down our throats who we have to vote for. Candidate suppression is a form of voter suppression. So I'm all for Bobby being on the stage.
We know that RFK is working hard to get on the ballot in all 50 states as an independent candidate. Marianne, I have to ask you, would you ever consider leaving the Democratic Party and run as an independent?
Well, it's very, very expensive to do so, number one. So that ship has sort of sailed for me. But also, I have to tell you, I'm kind of romantic about a Democratic Party that once was. I think both Democrats and Republicans, many of us are feeling like, what happened to the party that I used to know? It seems that both parties are more similar, as I said before, in serving their own donor base than in serving the principles on which they purport to stand. The Democratic Party used to display an unequivocal advocacy for the working people of the United States. And now it tries to sort of have it both ways, how to serve the donors and serve the people. But at a certain point, you have to decide. And so that's how I feel. George Washington said, he warned us about political parties in his farewell address. Mm-hmm. And he said, from factions of men more loyal to their party than to their country. Sure. It shouldn't matter what party. It should matter that we're Americans and we need to come together and make this country better for all Americans.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.